Hello and welcome to another episode of the Feudal Future podcast. I'm Marshall Toplansky.
I'm Joel Kotkin.
And today we have a really interesting set of guests to talk about technology, especially as how technology is affecting the middle class in the manufacturing space. We have Wyatt Newman, who is professor in the Electrical Engineering and Computer Science Department of the Case School of Engineering at Case Western Reserve. And we have Mike Grieves. Mike is the executive director of the Digital Twin Institute. He is an internationally renowned expert on product lifecycle management and coined the phrase digital twins. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Hi, Marshall.
So, guys, today, there's so much conversation going on out there about AI and how it's affecting society, how it's affecting the middle class. But what people don't appreciate is that there is a whole set of AI technologies, both on the physical level when it comes to robotics and on the virtual level when it comes to things like digital twins and Internet of Things, that has a tremendous impact on manufacturing. What are the big trends that are going on out there? Wyatt, you want to start us off?
Sure. Let's see. I think we've already become accustomed to some of the benefits of deep learning, which is the technical background for the new AI. Most recently, it's the large language models that are gaining lots of attention because they speak very eloquently and in complete paragraphs and do poetry or generate images. We've become accustomed to being able to talk to our devices in natural language. If you talk to Alexa, Siri, hello, Google, you expect them to understand you and act accordingly. We're already getting some controls, that is some physical responses due to our verbal requests. Like you can, tell Roomba to start or stop vacuuming. You can turn the lights on and off by voice command. You can adjust the temperature. You can lock and unlock your doors. These are things that we're starting to become comfortable with. I think people are very scared at present by the apparent intelligence of the large language models, such as ChatGPT and Bard, that give the appearance of being intelligent. My own position on that is that there's less there than meets the eye. There will be an impact. McKinsey recently projected that there will be a $4 trillion annual impact from AI. That's a lot of dollars. They've also said that more than half of the jobs will be affected by this AI. And of course, there are those who are concerned about AI taking over in defense, in war. There are, for example, the Patriot missiles that we sent to the Ukraine must be triggered by computers because the reaction time is too fast for humans. So we're already gradually turning over things like weapons to AI. And indeed, that does have scary elements to it. And I think one of the scariest elements with the new large language models is that they will lie to you and be very convincing about it. They'll just make stuff up and present it as it's fact. And it's interlaced with fact, so it's hard to pick up. And we see things that are comical, but also dangerous. There was another news item recently about it was a political advertisement for the person running for mayor of Toronto. And the image generated, used in this ad, had a man and a woman, and the woman has 3 arms. Now, you do a double take when you look at it, because everything looks very natural until you notice she has 3 arms, and sometimes you have to point it out, and then you know that this was automatically.
As going beyond that, I mean, thinking about the world of manufacturing, right? I mean, we're kind of in a world where we're looking at America reshoring manufacturing processes. Mike, how do these new technologies fit into that?
Yeah, so I'm fairly optimistic, and back to the AI thing. So when people ask me how do we stop AI from taking over, I basically say make sure we build all AI systems with a plug. So we can pull the plug on it if we don't like it, right? But I view it as an opportunity because from my perspective, I don't think AI is a replacement for people. We got plenty of people. What AI is an assistance. And so I liken it. I have a slide where it's a little angel standing on your shoulder, whispering stuff into your ear. I mean, so especially in sort of the middle class, what it's going to do is to give the average person the ability of having access to realms of information that only the big companies could have. So I am fairly bullish on this idea of the democratization of information with and especially in manufacturing. I don't think that
competition leveler is what you're saying. Joel, go ahead.
No, I mean, my sense of it is actually not exactly the same. One is that a lot of it is how the information, if you get the information that's sort of unabridged, if you will, that might be good. But I know that when I've looked at chat, for instance, if you ask a question, what's the role of natural gas in reducing emissions, which has been the biggest source of the reduction of emissions, it will say, oh no, we can't even talk about that because any fossil fuel is bad. I mean, it was like, it's not like you're getting
So you're saying there's bias that's built into the AIs that you're
and frankly, I think that the AI will be we'll have the same thing with Google. As a writer, I have used Google for years. It is increasingly difficult to use. If you don't follow the party line, if you ask a question on race, gender, climate, politics, the results are now so skewed that I have to use other search engines to actually do reporting. I mean, I literally cannot, if I want to look at both sides, I get one side. So having spent much of my life in California and covered Silicon Valley and watched what's been happening, I just think that the danger, at least in general, is that you're going to get very biased information. Certainly.
Well, what about this world of manufacturing? That it's not the world in general. What about that world?
So I think that is an assistance in that particular world. I think there's sort of kind of two technologies here that are coming into play. One is, and if you're talking about sort of reshoring, bringing back manufacturing, because quite frankly, we're never going to work as hard or want to work as hard or as long as people in other parts of the world. So the two aspects, and so my whole premise is that information is replacement for wasting resources. So how can I be more effective and efficient? And sort of there's two things that I think are happening. One is this ability of being able to use digital twins to model and simulate what's happening and what's going to happen. So kind of a crystal ball in the future. So if something happens on your manufacturing floor, say a robot glitches, it will be saying, hey, in 3 hours, we're going to have a bottleneck. So you need to go do this and this and this, okay? The second thing is additive manufacturing. I mean, the ability of simply being able to print. So if we can do all our work in the virtual world, so we design our product virtually, test our product virtually, manufacture the product virtually, support the product virtually, and only when we get it all right, do we go out and move it around expensive atoms, and then we just print it. I think that there's an opportunity. I promised the head of the Navy, NAVC, that they could print aircraft carriers in 2075. Not happy? Come find me.
You'll be down at the bottom, looking at the looking at the wreckage of the Titanic and of the Titan.
Mike, if I could follow up a little bit on this, and I understand what you're saying, and I see the logic, but as Robert Gordon at Northwestern has shown, this whole period, this most recent period of the rise of social media and digital technology has not done much for American productivity. Do you think it's just being missed?
So I mean, I think there's sort of two pieces here. One is the use of the social stuff. In fact, I just kept talking on it. I mean, we got to get the kids off of this thing and have them use it for the. So we're in a position where they use this stuff in the social media, and then they go into to academia, and we basically don't treat them as digital natives. We make them do 200,000 diffie-Q problems and bore the hell out of them, and we basically wash out, I think, potential engineers. And so I think that the opportunity here in industry is huge. And I would sort of say, I'm not sure I believe the fact that there hasn't been any productivity gains on this. I mean, I basically have seen project after project after project that have ROIs that are in the hundreds, if not thousands. Payback is 10 weeks. If you can reduce, for example, 4 robots on a factory floor to 2, I mean, there's a huge savings there. So I'm not sure. I mean, you know, that's been the classic case is you know, from the Nobel Prize economists, you know, we see the advantages of computers everywhere, but in the stats. Well, maybe we got wrong stats.
Well,
fair enough.
Is it some other way we could be
Wyatt, what are you
measuring
seeing? What are you seeing from your perspective? Because you deal with physical robots, right? That theoretically, not theoretically, in real world, replace humans in an assembly or a manufacturing environment. How is that affecting productivity?
Yeah, so it's to Joel's point. I would categorize social media more as in the entertainment sector rather than the manufacturing sector. I think the biggest short-term impact of the AI advances on manufacturing is in machine vision. Machine vision, you know, has been around for 50 years, but it was always expensive, hard to program, prone to errors. And when the deep learning emerged in the image recognition challenges, it leapfrogged everything that had come before it, and it's constantly gotten better. So now using machine vision is much easier. It's easier, it's more reliable. It will be what makes the difference in achieving autonomous vehicles, right, which is a form of automation. The autonomous vehicles depend on being able to interpret natural images, and there's nothing comparable to the current AI in accomplishing that. There's carryovers there for manufacturing, because if we want to do things, you know, automated logistics, all right, you know, packing Amazon boxes. And objects are coming down conveyor belts and robots go and grab them and they put them in the boxes. Well, you typically want to be able to recognize those. You can't really make the conventional high volume parts feeders because it's you're fulfilling individual orders that are unique. The objects that come by have different sizes, shapes, you know, you'll handle them with different types of grippers. And the machine vision can recognize that. This is what you're looking for. This is where it is. By the way, it is of this type, and this is the way that you can manipulate it. So that's very big for manufacturing. I think that will it will continue to have an impact in along the same lines that we've seen recently, where manufacturing in the U.S. Has been increasing, but manufacturing employment has not. Right, and that's because there are computers and machine vision systems and robots that are doing more of that work. So the kind of the traditional, oh, well, good manufacturing jobs are the ones that bring prosperity to the middle class. We can't really compete against the low wages, but if your productivity is better through leveraging automation, then yeah, we can compete at manufacturing, just not with as many human employees. I think that there will be more of that. And that will include things like tech support. All right. So that's one of the things I think Bard and ChatGPT can be good at. You know, when you call up and you say, my robot is showing the following error codes, you know, what can I do about it? And in terms of being able to find and quote from manuals and, you know, point you to YouTubes and describe what needs to be done and what parts need to be ordered and get them shipped out. Yeah. I think that can be automated, and that will affect jobs. So machine vision, certainly, like I mentioned, that'll make the difference in autonomous vehicles. There are some things that you can do with robots now. You would be able to do some of what you might see in Iron Man sci-fi. Oh, robot, hand me that small Phillips screwdriver. Yes, it will be able to recognize it. It will understand what it means to grab that screwdriver, and it will hand it to you. And we will expect that as normal. Right, as we would expect when we say, you know, Alexa, go send Roomba to vacuum the kitchen. But there's another layer of that is not at all ready, that people might falsely think is ready now, and that is in mechanical interactions, how you actually handle something, how you would assemble parts together, how you would carry a cup of coffee, how we would even plug a plug into a socket. These are things that we learn through practice of manipulation, and zero of that is in the current large language models. Right? You can talk about it all you want,
Right.
and you still can't plug a plug into a socket.
But let me get back to your point that you talked about earlier, which is the notion that we will be using fewer and fewer people in manufacturing.
Mhm.
So, what if you were advising a case graduate on what they ought to do for a living? I mean, where would you point them? What kind of job opportunities and career opportunities do you think will be growing that would, and maybe not a case graduate, but let's say a middle class graduate,
Or even somebody going to a trade school.
yeah, where are the opportunities of the future going to be? Mike?
Well, it's certainly the case that
Wyatt, go
students are flocking to computer science. And that's unfortunately, that seems to be a lagging indicator, right? By the time they graduate, it's sort of saturated. But I think there's still growth there. There has been a resurgence of robotics in the last decade. And I think that will continue to grow. I think that someone who wants to be involved in a technical nature, wants to be an engineer, computer scientist, that they do need to know the technologies of AI and also the technologies of robotics. And they will be part of the workforce that ends up creating these factories that use fewer people. So I think that is a good pathway, given that robots do not yet have the intelligence of how to manipulate, like I said, plug a plug into a socket. There still will be lots of manual operations to be done. That's not the the high end of employment that we would want to see. But I don't see those types of line workers being replaced right away. I think that there will be a big impact on a lot of white collar jobs. So for example, if you're doing a patent search, that's an expensive act that's performed by expensive people. You can do patent searches pretty well with large language models. So we may see more white collar being impacted. I would have said in the past, well, get yourself a good liberal arts education. Your career may change over your lifetime, but as long as you have a solid foundation, you'll still land on your feet. Well, I think that's still good advice. People who can write well and speak well are also going to be challenged by these large language model machines, which write very convincingly.
That's really great to know that Joel and I are kind of reaching retirement age.
Well, yeah,
but if we go back to manufacturing, I think there are going to be plenty. First of all, we don't have enough people in manufacturing right now. I mean,
Right.
Quite frankly, and I think, for example, the community colleges and now they're 4-year colleges. We can't graduate. I'm on the board of one. We can't graduate enough technicians to handle the machines that are out there. So I disagree that there are going to be less overall jobs. Production planning jobs, being able to, in essence, digitally commission a factory, for example, before it's built, and then monitoring that factory as it's going along is going to require it. So I mean, this sounds to me like the whole 70s things. Oh my God, computers are coming along. We're going to have no jobs. Oh, poor us. And what happened is there were new kinds of jobs that got created on the basis of this new capability. I mean, if we're running, in essence, a digital factory, a virtual factory, a digital twin of that factory, people have got to be involved in that. And by the way, I mean, there's some great videos out there. BMW is doing that, where in essence, you have people that are, in essence, can take control of part of the factory, sitting in their office if something goes wrong. So I think there's going to be a whole bunch of current jobs, and I think there's a whole bunch of new jobs. And quite frankly, if we're bringing manufacturing back, we got more manufacturing for people to have jobs. So I think our focus should be on not, oh my God, we're not going to have, people aren't going to have jobs, so people shouldn't go into manufacturing. We should be pushing on bringing as much manufacturing back as we can in order to be able to and then get our students to focus on these kind of jobs. They're great jobs, you know.
And this is not the putting a plug in and out of an outlet kind of thing that Wyatt is talking about. We're talking about professional jobs that are engineering focused and process focused.
Well, maybe in a sense, what we need to do is redefine what a manufacturing job is.
Right. And I think it's going to get redefined for us as we move more of our work into the virtual world. Okay, there's going to be the ability of being able to in essence create everything and test it out before we move around expensive equipment. And so I mean that's where we're going. I mean, as I said, virtual commissioning we're working on right now. The ability of actually building a factory and testing it out. It makes the Toyota production system, which is lean manufacturing, look positively archaic because, you know, they're spending all kinds of time, you know, moving things around on the factory floor, and virtual commissioning does this in a heartbeat. So I think our issue is we don't need to dumb down these jobs, okay? We need to have more qualified people. And in essence, the 2-year degree programs in terms of technical kind of capability is, I think, where we really need to focus. And we need to really work hard at bringing those jobs back. Quite frankly, I thought COVID was going to do a much better job in terms of reshoring. I mean, I still don't see enough. I mean, we spent $50 billion on the CHIPS program for semiconductors. And in fact, I was just out at in Las Vegas giving a presentation to Applied Materials. I mean, there is tons of stuff happening in these particular areas that the U.S. was once a leader and now isn't, and we could bring those things back. And that's what we should be working on.
Well, and with the tensions going on in China and Taiwan, we may be doing that sooner than later. Go ahead, Wyatt.
So I would not want to argue that there will be fewer jobs. I don't think that's the case. If you look at, you know, the history of what technology has done with employment, ultimately is created more jobs, more wealth, better productivity. You know, we even got a 3-day weekend. You know, some of us. The impact, though, has been disruption. All right. So when you say bring back those manufacturing jobs, we have to be careful about that. Those manufacturing jobs.
I didn't say that. I said bring back manufacturing. I didn't say bring back the low wage assembly jobs. What I want to do is in essence bring them back and do what I said I do is actually go print that stuff. Okay, as opposed to the labor intensive ways of doing things in the past. So I'm clearly not, hey, we need to compete with China with a bunch of people, putting chips into sockets kind of thing. Absolutely not.
Well, let me just stop you guys for just a second, because I want to bring out something that is underlying this conversation that is really interesting. I'm not sure people really appreciate, but the fact that we're now using digital technology gives us two things that we haven't been able to do before. One is that Wyatt kind of talked about, which is the ability to customize what it is that we make for specific uses, where in the past scale processes wouldn't have allowed us to do that.
Right.
And the other thing is what Mike was talking about, which is the ability to screw up in vitro, right? To screw up in a laboratory kind of digital environment, perfect something before we actually put it out there and get it right the first time. That's something that digital twins and virtualization of manufacturing is bringing to us, that is really bringing to humanity for the first time. Those are pretty significant changes, don't you think?
Oh, I think it's huge. I mean, in the virtual space, there's two big opportunities: is we are time unconstrained and we are space unconstrained, meaning that we can in essence run an assembly line for 50 years in virtual space in hours, for example, and understand what's going to happen. The other thing is that we had to physically go, when something is happening in the factory and figure out what's going on. We now can, in essence, appear there digitally, if you will, and be able to bring resources to bear on a particular problem. So there's no requirement now for physical proximity, and so I think there are huge opportunities in terms of not only efficiency but effectiveness that we could bring to bear in order to, in essence, change the whole paradigm of manufacturing.
Wyatt, you want to jump in? Go ahead.
Yeah. So in terms of what will be the impact on employment, if we look historically, say in the Industrial Revolution, automated weaving machines came along and everyone said, oh, all of these, poor widows are going to be out of jobs. No, actually employment in textiles in England went up. When people introduced ATM machines, they said, oh, these bank cashiers are going to be unemployed. Well, no, that's not the work they do anymore, but the employment in that area actually went up. When computers were introduced and they said all of these occupations will be impacted and there will be all this unemployment. Well, no, the employment went up using computers. The thing is, though, we didn't really know what the jobs would be. They're different. Okay, so it will be disruption. It's a little hard to say what those jobs will be like, but there is one thing out of these trends that we can say, and that is you don't stand back and let the other countries introduce the technology first. We have to embrace it. We have to be the leaders in it. And so introducing the AI in manufacturing, it's got to be done, or we will become ourselves, second or third world country.
Well, this leads us to sort of the point that we want to, end up with, which is, what should we do? What should the government do? Should it do nothing? Are there programs we should be enhancing? I mean, given that, this train's out of the station, and the question is, are we on it or not? What do you think the government should do, state, local, and national, to make sure that, that we're competitive in this environment?
Get the hell out of the way.
Well, that's one way. Yeah. On the other hand, Michael, you just promoted the CHIPS Act.
I didn't promote it. I basically said there is $50 billion. I didn't say how effectively it was being spent. I just said, I have my reservations about that act, by the way. So,
well, we do know that China is not going to stand back. We do know that they're investing heavily in the new technologies, in robotics and in AI, and in quantum computing. They're not going to stand back. And countries that have industrial policies and invest in themselves could be the new winners. So I'm not sure that standing back is our best policy.
Is there an educational component here, though, that the government ought to get involved in? Should the government be promoting education for this next generation of workers?
I think in terms of the university level, college level, and focusing on jobs that are going to allow them, in essence, to earn a living would be a big opportunity. I mean, I think we've gotten really far astray in terms of offering degrees that nobody's ever going to be able to make a living at, and I think we've got to stop encouraging that. So I mean, as I said, I think the community college system has done a pretty good job. The university system, I think, is lagging, quite frankly. I mean, I have broken my pick on that in all kinds of places in terms of saying, look at. In fact, I got a $250 million donation from Siemens to Florida Institute of Technology. Couldn't get the professors to put it into their classes. I mean, their claim was, oh my God, our syllabus is so full, and how are we ever going to train it? Well, these are digital natives. I said, who taught them Call of Duty last weekend? I mean, they picked this stuff up. So we've got. I think that could be a role, although I'm not particularly optimistic about the ability of the government and the university system to do that sort of thing. But call me just jaded. So
well, we'll have to call you a member of the feudal future. That's a fan of the feudal future. Go ahead.
So I do think that generically investment in education is a good investment for a country. To have a well-educated workforce and a well-educated citizenry improves the quality of life, both in terms of wealth and experience. I am troubled to see the cost of education. It used to be University of California system was free, all right? And I speak with my colleagues in Europe and they go, yeah, university is free. What do you mean? You can't afford it. So we may be pricing ourselves out of the marketplace. So yes, investment in education. As far as what kind of education, well, of course, I'm an engineer and I favor my area, but we don't really know what the next necessary skills and education will be. We better diversify in that. So right now it might seem silly, But then maybe it crops up later as, oh my gosh, linguists, who knew? That's what you need to build these large language models. But generically, I think investment in education has to be good for our future.
Well,
Except
gentlemen,
we're investing in the wrong areas. I mean, the ratio of professors to administration has dropped dramatically, and we're investing in the wrong. I mean, if it was about, hey, we're going to add more professors, I'm all for it. But that's not.
I'm with you there, Mike. I
yeah,
agree
or
completely.
by the way, speaking as a professor, a clinical professor, who has taken a vow of poverty by deciding to go into the educational space, maybe we should pay them a little bit more too.
Look at what administrators are getting paid versus professors, and tell me we aren't upside down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear you. I hear you. Well,
So-
and that's a symptom of the feudal future.
Yes.
So,
But I'd like to sneak in a little more robotic technology here. One of the things that you see increasingly is they talk about cobots, and that is humans working in collaboration with robots. And in this case, the pitch is, and I actually believe the pitch, that the robot can be doing what is a set of repetitive tasks so that the co-worker can be focusing on the parts of the task that require some degree of intelligence. All right, so if you have your mechanical assistant and you're working together with a mechanical assistant, I think great, especially the mechanical assistant is doing things like lifting heavy payloads, so avoiding repetitive motion injuries and back strain, that sort of thing really makes sense. And before the robots can be so intelligent that they can replace the worker as well, this is a pathway there. All right, and I'm going to mention an anecdote on a personal level. My current startup in road prints is a system for painting markings on roads, like crosswalks and stop lines and turn arrows and bike logos and school zones and such. At present, that industry has an aging workforce, and anecdotally, managers are saying we can't hire people. No one wants to do this. You're going out at 2 a.m. in the morning to paint on roads, and you're getting hit by cars, and the work is backbreaking. And by the way, it doesn't pay that well, and nobody wants to do it. Not surprising they can't hire people. So, and I don't want to be self-promoting here, but as an anecdote, with the robotic system, you have an operator in the truck who drives it, and then commands with a touch screen how the robot should be painting. Nobody gets out on the pavement. Nobody gets hit by the cars. It reduces the workforce, and what you need to recruit in that case is someone who can run video games. And I think we have a lot of those. So that our future workforce might be very different than what we think. And I think that this blend of humans working together with robots is going to be a good segue as the robots gradually become more and more capable of taking on more of the tasks.
Well, that's a great way to end.
To end this, yeah, it's a great way of looking at the combination of human and artificial intelligence endeavors coming together. Gentlemen, thank you so much. This has been a fascinating view of the future and some of the opportunities that technology provides us, not just the risks. So thank you for being part of the Feudal Future podcast, and we look forward to having you come back.
Thank you very much. That was terrific. Thank you both.
Thanks, guys.
The Feudal Future.